Hello everyone, my name is Rob, welcome to Kinetic Rugby League. In this video I'm going to be giving you my Super League Round 26 tips and predictions. If you want to see how I got on last week, you can check the pinned comment down below, but without further ado, let's get started on the first game for this week. Kicking things off, we have the Wigan Warriors versus Castleford Tigers. Starting with league position, Wigan sit in first on the ladder, Castleford sit in 11th on the ladder. In terms of form, Wigan have won 5 in their last 5, Castleford have won 2 in their last 5. For me, I don't think there's too much that needs to be said on this one, and I think most people watching would agree. Now, Wigan are the significantly better team here. The only positive I can give to Castleford is that I had them to lose last week. I thought Hull would be fine against them, and they managed to win. So fair play to Castleford, but against this Wigan team, pending sin bins or a red card, or injuries to key players, I don't see it going very well for Castleford this week. We could see another 40, 50, 60 point game for Wigan. We could see it. Castleford, I spoke about this last week, their spine on paper looks pretty strong. You'd have Widdop at fullback, you'd have Austin at 6, Miller at 7, and McShane at 9. Now, as much as these players have been given criticism over the last few months and years for some players, like Austin's one, for Super League standard, that's a strong spine. And the fact that it's not really been producing, I know Austin's a new addition, of course, he's not taking all the blame here, but the fact that the spine that they had going into the season hasn't been performing is strange to me. But I think they're going to be safe. They're going to be playing with that, that worry that they need to win, because if Wakefield just manage to come out with wins, they're going to be in big trouble. But even with that sort of lingering over them, they just don't have the quality to compete with this Wigan team that are just... They can control games too well. They have so much pace in attack. They're clinical enough in defence, especially on their own try line. They cannot compete. They just cannot compete. Simple as that. So without going too much into this one any further, we're just going to go with Wigan Warriors 40, Castleford Tigers 12. Next up, we have Leigh Leopards versus Wakefield Trinity. Starting with league position, Leigh sit in 4th, Wakefield sit in 12th. In terms of form, Leigh have won 2 in their last 5, Wakefield have won 0 in their last 5. For me, this is pretty much like Wigan versus Castleford. Team near the top versus team right near the bottom. In this case, it is the team at the bottom. Leigh, what they need this week is a big statement win. Not for the league to see, but for themselves. Because they need that confidence, believing that they are a great team again. So, earlier on in the season, you could imagine a big scoreline between Leigh and Wakefield. But right now, I think it's a little bit tricky. But Leigh desperately need a strong win to give themselves that confidence going into playoffs, because they have made it. They are a playoff team. It's just where in the top 6 are they going to finish. I think 4th place is going to be where they stay. But Wakefield are fighting for their lives now. They need to pull 2 wins out of the bag. And this is a very difficult start for them. Extremely difficult. And I don't see it happening. I think, ultimately, Leigh have been going through some struggles, fair enough. But, ultimately, even with the fight that Wakefield's going to show, Leigh are just too strong. The individual players that they've got are very creative, high-quality players. Lachlan Lamb, the key example in favour of the Leopards. But I'm not... Okay, I'm going to go with a big scoreline here, but I could also see a tight game just because of how much this game means to Wakefield and how much they need to win this game. Leigh don't need to win it. They want to win it, obviously, but they don't need to win it. And when I say they need a big performance here for the confidence, that's internally for them. But it is nowhere near the same level of need and desire that Wakefield are going to go into this game with. So I could absolutely see a close game where Wakefield give it everything They throw absolutely everything they've got at Leigh. But ultimately, Leigh are just too strong a team. In attack and in defence, they can shut Wakefield down all day. I think Wakefield will find a way to score, but I think just the one time, because Leigh are too good for me. So I'm going to go with Leigh Leopards 30, Wakefield Trinity 6. Next up, we have Warrington Wolves versus St Helens. Starting with league position, Warrington currently sit in 6th on the ladder, Saints sit in 3rd. In terms of form, Warrington have won 2 in their last 5, Saints have won 5 in their last 5. So for me, as a Wire fan, I've seen this game too many times to know exactly how this is going to go. Warrington are going to score first. We're going to end up with an 8-point lead. It's going to be 8-0, so we'll either get 2 tries and we'll be confident because we put 2 past them, or we'll have scored a try and then had a penalty, or penalty then try. We'll have an 8-point lead to start with. And then Saints are just going to chip away bit by bit. They'll get 6 points on the board, and it might be like 8-6 at half-time, something like that. Or Saints, knowing them, will score just before half-time and take the lead. We'll then have the opportunity to equalise with a penalty, and we'll get to our 14 points, something like that. We'll end up with 14 points because we'll take penalties against Saints. That's what we do. Every time we're at home, we always get a penalty. We always take it, which makes sense. It's fair. You know, if you can take 2 points against a strong team, do it. But then St Helens, second half, when we really need it, in crunch time, we'll just find a way through. Now, I don't ever bet on Warrington games because, you know, as they say, never bet on your own team. So even if Warrington were strong favourites in a game, I wouldn't do it. And even though Saints are favourites here, and it's logical, like it's completely logical if you bet for Saints to win. I understand it. I still couldn't do it because, not that it's against my own team, it's just I know how jammy Warrington could be, and, I bet on St Helens to beat Warrington at home, and okay, finally we get it done. I just know how this game's going to go. But a few other things in terms of the squad. George Williams is unavailable. He's being rested. He did pick up a bit of a knock, but he's kind of being rested because they don't want to aggravate the injury at the moment. Gil Dudson is unavailable, but Joe Philbin will be coming back in. There's no Peter Matauti either. Get in. And that allows Connor Wrench to come back into the team. It also allows Leon Hayes to come into the team in place of Williams. Wish it was in place of Drinkwater personally, because I think Hayes and Williams would have been a great pairing, but this is what we're stuck with. This is an amazing opportunity for Hayes to show what he's capable of on his, I believe it's his debut home game in Super League. I think he only played an away game last season. That was against Huddersfield at the end of the year, I think. So this is his first home debut Super League game. And it's against St Helens. You can bet that he's going to give it everything he's got. The fans have wanted to see him for a while, and the fact that we get to see him at home in such a big game gives me so much excitement, and the fans are going to back him so much this week. He could be a key difference maker, but just knowing how these games go, we'll take an early lead, we'll look a little bit comfortable, then Saints will start to chip away, and then come the back end of the game, when it's tight, we'll mess up some opportunities and Saints will run away with it. As much as I want to say that this is a slightly different Warrington team to how it was a few weeks back before the back-to-back wins came in, there is the possibility that Warrington come in with a strong performance here. They can win this game, but St Helens are just too strong. They've been on too good a form that I need to look at this from an outside perspective. I can't look at this as a Wire fan. It needs to be unbiased. So the way that these games normally go would lead me to predict a scoreline of Warrington Wolves 14, St Helens 26. Next up we have Hull FC versus Huddersfield Giants. Starting with league position, Hull FC sit in 10th, Huddersfield Giants sit in 9th in terms of form. They've both only won 1 in their last 5 games. This game, as far as I'm aware, mathematically means nothing. Pretty sure both these teams cannot make playoffs. So it's... Are players going to be rested? Maybe. Some players might be rested. Are they fighting for pride? I guess so. Who has more to gain from this? I almost feel like Hull FC has more to gain from a win here, just because of Huddersfield being as low as they have been all season, that they started to push back up. And not as high as Hull have been, but as close to playoffs as they've been the last few weeks, that just they've had just a huge drop-off. It's not been good enough. They should have beaten Castleford last week. I think Huddersfield are the better team here going into this. And they want to finish their season, as close to playoffs as possible. I think it's going to be a tight game, because I think there's still quality players for Hull FC, but they're just in a bit of disarray at the moment. There's key players that they've not been able to tie down, Jake Clifford being one. I think, was it Ben McNamara as well? Might have been another one. But we're just going to have to see what Hull can put up with. For me, I always feel like they're dealing with injuries, and it doesn't matter what squad they put out, even if they do have a full team. Hull are just becoming a bit of a weird team. I'm not sure there's a specific word to describe them, but they're just there, if that makes sense. Hull are just there. Whereas Huddersfield, I feel that there's always that individual brilliance in that team, whether it be Will Price, Oliver Russell, Theo Farge, Masters, players all around that squad can produce incredible moments, and I feel that they're just the better team right now and are better equipped to win this game. So there's not really much meaning to this one, but I do see a fairly tight game, but I can't back Hull. I can't do it. But I think Huddersfield, as much as they've been a bit off from time to time, the last few weeks, I've seen enough from them to think that they'll be strong enough in this game. So I'm going to go with Hull FC 18, Huddersfield Giants 22. Next up, we have the Catalans Dragons versus Leeds Rhinos. Starting with league position, Catalans sit in second on the ladder, Leeds sit in 8th. In terms of form, Catalans have won 3 in their last 5, Leeds have won 2 in their last 5. For me, this is a little bit tricky because we're looking at a Catalans team that has been a little bit dodgy the last couple of weeks. And I think this will be a key indicator to see whether they can really compete for the grand final. Now, people might be saying that it's a little bit too early to have those conversations that they're not good enough to win it all, but we have seen the last couple of weeks a drop in performance, and it wasn't that convincing against Wakefield either. Now, Leeds, we know typically with Leeds historically towards the back end of a season, when their regular season hasn't been great, when it comes to playoffs and the back end of regular season, they have been strong. And they've just got the wins. They've just got them done. Now, you could absolutely look at last week's performance and say, well, they're just not going to compete here. Simple as that. Castleford, Catalans, Jesus Christ. Catalans, even though they weren't that great against Wakefield, Leeds were so bad against Wigan, it's not even a debate. There's no conversation to be had here. Catalans are just better. Didn't say Castleford that time. Catalans are just better. Simple as that. And that's one way of looking at it. But Leeds can absolutely pull out a win here. The thing is, they need to as well. They have to win this game. Otherwise, there's no chance of playoffs. So they need Warrington to lose. They need Salford to lose as well. So there is a chance of overtaking Salford because they're close enough in goal difference. Warrington's a little bit further away. So if they did win this game, they'd need a strong result as well. Maybe next week they'd be able to pull out a strong win if they were still within a chance. But this is a must-win game for Leeds. And as I was saying about Leigh earlier, Catalans need to win this game to give themselves that confidence. They got a win last week, and that was, that's helpful. But they could do with a statement win, I guess, against a shaky Leeds team. A strong statement win would be good for them going into playoffs. They'll of course want to take the number 1 spot going into playoffs, but I think that might be reserved for Wigan at this point now. I don't think they're going to let that slip. So I do think, I will say, I can absolutely see Leeds winning this game. I don't think it's impossible for them to win this game because they can produce tries. They can shut teams out. They can, go toe-to-toe with some teams. Of course, they can have abysmal performances, as they did last week. But I think it would be unwise to just completely count out Leeds. So I do have a fairly recognisable gap here in my scoreline, because this is what I think it will be. But I can absolutely see an upset for a Leeds win, because they need to win so much, and Catalans have been struggling the last few weeks. So I don't think it's ridiculous if Leeds win. But given that Catalans could easily be on top form this weekend and just play as their usual selves, if they do, they'll have a strong statement win against Leeds. And that's the way I see it going, because they need it at this point for themselves. So I'm going to go with Catalans 26, Leeds Rhinos 12. Finally for this week, we have Kingston Rovers versus Salford Red Devils. Starting with league position, Hull KR currently sit in 5th on the ladder. Salford Red Devils sit in 7th. In terms of form, they've both won 3 in the last 5. Starting with Salford, looking at their game last week against Warrington, it was not very convincing for me. I felt that Salford should have been in a much stronger position, scoreline-wise, against a team that, as even Gary Chambers said, was clunky in attack, and there was constant errors. Salford getting the ball again and again and again and again through Warrington making mistakes. The scoreline should have been bigger than that. They made their own mistakes, which caused Warrington to score very early on in the game, of course, and to to start to fight back into the game. The majority of Warrington's tries were due to Salford mistakes. So they cut those out. They'll be in a much stronger position in that game. This week against Hull KR, Hull for me are just too strong. You look at the performances they put in the last couple of weeks, the consistency, how strong they look in attack. I think Salford can compete in areas. I think, we could see a level scoreline at half time. I think they'll go back and forth a little bit, but ultimately Hull KR are going to be too strong. I've not seen enough from Salford. Yes, they're on positive form at the moment, which is good for them. But I can't see us. If everything just goes normally, I can't see a Salford win. But tell a lie, I can see a Salford win, because they've got the players to do it. Briley, Croft, Sneed, Ackers. The spine on paper is brilliant. Hull KR have just been getting it done for me. Salford, for me, just haven't been convincing enough. And I think they're not there yet, whatever there is. It's more of a gut feeling. I apologise, I can't give some proper statistical backing on that. It's a gut feeling that Salford just aren't there yet, whereas Hull KR are there for me. I don't mean right at the top, but they're putting in the performances that they need to put in. They're safe in playoffs, so there's not really as much incentive. But they still want, to finish the season out strong, of course. Teams don't want to just lose, obviously. But Salford are fighting for a playoff spot. They need to win this game, because they've got Leeds right behind them, and they're trying to, catch up to Warrington basically on goal difference. So we could get a really aggressive, pacey Salford team, which is, when you see that, it is one of the most dangerous teams in the league. I love it when Salford play with a lot of pace and creativity. I think they're one of the best at it, and I would have liked to see them a little bit higher. Their consistency and their form really dipped. I think they probably should have been a staple of the top 6 at this point. They could have put themselves in there, but mid-season was just not good enough. But Hull KR have chipped away throughout the season, put in strong results, and at the moment are on the up. They're just too strong overall, I feel. So Salford can win this game, but I think Hull KR are just too strong. So I'm going to go with Kingston Rovers 28, Salford Red Devils 18. So that is going to be it for this video. If you have any predictions for this week, let me know in the comments down below. Also, let me know how you got on last week. But that's going to be it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.